In 1956, when most of the variety theatres were closing down, the famous Shepherd's Bush Empire Theatre was turned into the BBC television studios. It was very strange to appear at the theatre one minute and the next time going in for a television show when they stripped out all the stalled seats and put cameras there. The opening night was on a bank holiday, so they knew that they would have a few more million viewers than they would normally have. And they tried to take that opportunity to publicize the opening of the studio as well as mentioning the new Manchester BBC studios. And I was tasked to try and come up with some publicity stunt that would mention both studios. When you think about it, that's quite a difficult challenge. You have to entertain the studio audience, the millions watching, at the same time plug two studios. And I came out with probably one of the most difficult and most complicated tricks that I've ever done. Well, to see how I achieved that, let me show you an example. I remembered seeing a sporting event where they had a split screen. I'd never seen that before. They showed the race course on a corner of the screen and the other side was a studio. And I asked if that could be done, and I was told it had never been done for light entertainment. And sure enough, we got permission to use a split screen for my show, and I understand it was the first time ever that it was used in light entertainment. A studio in Manchester was shown, which is about 200 miles from London, and of course we were in the Shepherd's Bush Empire, which is now the BBC television studios. Up in Manchester was a well-known commentator and newsreader called Peter West. I had asked him to stop the first celebrity that would walk through the door of the Manchester studios and ask him if he would take part. And he had found somebody, the famous cricketer called Cyril Washbrook. They had also invited their local bank manager to be in the studio. They had no idea what I was going to do. We had a link up between the two studios so that Cyril Washbrook could hear me, and I asked him to take out his wallet and take out any notes that he might have. He took out a £5 note, which was a very large white note at that time. He took out a £1 note, which was a medium-sized green note, and he took out a 10-shilling note, which was a smaller brown note. And he put them on the table. And I said, please pick one at random. He decided on the 10-shilling note. I asked him to hand it to the bank manager, who read out the serial number, which was recorded on the blackboard. Then I asked him to fold it into half, half again, and half again, so it became quite small. And then I had an afterthought. I said, I would like to identify that note, so would you hand it to Peter West, the commentator, who had a pin ready on the table. I said, would you please make a secret pinprick into that note somewhere, but don't show it to anyone. So he turned away, put the pin into the note, then folded it again, and I asked somebody for a cigarette case, which somebody produced with 6 or 7 cigarettes in it. I asked them to take the cigarettes out, put them in their pocket, showed the cigarette case empty, put the 10-shilling note in, and closed it, and then held it between thumb and forefinger in full view of the camera in Manchester. In the meantime, in London, I had 2 people next to me as well. One was the local bank manager that they'd invited to attend, and the other one was somebody that everybody knew. It was a man called Fabian of the Yard, a real detective who had become a television personality. He had his own series, which was called Fabian of the Yard, and in America it was called Fabian of Scotland Yard.
This is Fabian of Scotland Yard.
But he was certainly the right man to have because everybody trusted him. And I asked him to look at a little brass tube. He looked into it, it was empty. He put a little label on. I asked him to initial the label, look at the empty tube again, hold it between thumb and forefinger in his hand. Then, at the last minute, I took it from him showed it empty to the camera, to the bank manager and to Fabian, asked him to again hold it between thumb and forefinger. Then we travelled back to Manchester and I said, "Are you still holding the cigarette case?" "Yes." I said, "Well, I'm now going to count to 5. On the count of 5, I want you to open the case." And I counted fairly dramatically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, open the cigarette case, and they opened it. And there was a surprise because nothing had happened. The 10-shilling note was still folded inside the case. Obviously no reaction from the audience. And I said, "Of course, I forgot the drum roll." Now in the studio in London, we had a big symphony orchestra, including the timpani drums, these big cattle drums. I said, "May I have a drum roll, please?" And the drummer started the boom, and I counted more dramatically this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open the cigarette case, and believe it or not, the 10-shilling note had gone and the cigarettes were back, and the audience was astounded.
Thank you, fabulous David Berglas.
Well, I said, if it's not there, it has to be somewhere. So I asked Fabian in London, and remember, both sides were still on the split screen. "Just look at the tube." He said, "Yes, there's a piece of paper in there." I said, "Well, push it out." He pushed out the little piece of paper, opened it out, but it wasn't paper, it was a 10-shilling note. I immediately asked him to hand it to the bank manager in London. I said, "Is that a genuine note? Would you pass it?" He looked at it, he said, "Absolutely." And just before he handed it back to me, I asked Peter West where he had put that secret pinprick. And he said, "Well, one of the numbers of the serial number was a 9, and I put the pinprick in the center of the 9. The bank manager in London looked at the note against the light and confirmed that there was a pinhole in the middle of the 9 in the 10-shilling note in London. I then finished by saying, "Well, I apologize to Cyril Washbrook because I can't magic it back because we are out of time, but I will send it to you in the post, and thank you for your help." I've just been telling you about one of my most ambitious routines that I've ever created, the 10-shilling note that disappeared in Manchester and reappeared in London. Now you may think many magicians have made things disappear and reappear, but the important thing is to have something identifiable, something that only exists in one form, in a unique form. And of course a Treasury Note has a serial number, and on top of that the pinprick was made secretly. Of course I don't claim anything magical or that any kind of supernatural powers, so most of my routines, and I say most, not all, have a logical explanation. But if you just think about it, nobody was an assistant, or if you want to call them a stooge or a helper, or knew how it was done. Certainly Peter West had no idea how it was done, and he said so many times after that. Also, Cyril Washbrook had been picked at random as he walked through the door. Of course, the Treasury Note is unique because of its serial number, but on top of that, the secret pinprick that was put in gave it a unique feeling that only that one note existed. It was a very ambitious magical routine, probably the most complicated I've ever done, and I enjoyed talking about it. Well, I'm sure you've got your own theories of how this was achieved, and if it made you think, that's great, because that's what magic is all about.